Okay, so you guys know how being petty is like my spiritual gift, right?
Welcome to a new segment I'm calling That's Not Biblical.
Thank you for your contribution, man. Now,
Hi.
We're back. Oh, I
This
should
is
say
like
I'm
the
back.
quietest we ever were like, hi guys.
hello.
Except for maybe the first episode.
Well, maybe because I'm always watching that video like, Rachel, it would take you such little time to update that video so that it didn't say last Sunday of every month, but I just never remember to do it.
It's not like you haven't had a few things happening in your life.
It isn't, but like I could do it very easily. And
I think it's like out of sight, out of mind. You don't think about it until it's showtime.
I guess.
Guys, are we on our own for this live stream? This is maybe the first time that we haven't had folks.
Why are you just telling everybody that's going to listen to
Seriously,
it later?
Just be chill.
We don't
about
have
it.
anybody here right now.
Oh, guys,
I'm
it's
so
nothing to
uncomfy.
it's nothing to be ashamed of or embarrassed of.
Is it? I'm embarrassed.
Why? I think some of it is we just have had kind of like,
Well,
look, if I'm going to be really honest, maybe April and I scared them all away last month.
I watched it back, the part, because you guys know I was on for a little bit, but then I watched it back and you guys did a great job.
I agree, actually. I thought it was
Mom.
very fun. We actually got a lot of positive feedback, honestly.
It was everybody like, wow, we're so glad Rachel is not here.
No, they just thought it was soups funny. Hi, Garrett.
I'm just kidding. Okay, well, hi everybody.
I'm super glad that you're here.
I'm happy
April's
to be
super glad
back.
that you're here.
I am.
Are
I'm
you?
Very glad. Yeah.
Are you?
I didn't advertise this very well. I think I just shared it to my story like 5 minutes ago. So sorry.
That's
I
okay.
know.
People just need to know like in the minute sometimes.
I feel
They
like
just
we
need
do
to know.
actually get a lot of foot traffic off of those in the moment shares.
Sure.
Mhm.
And like our subscribers too, because they would get like a notification, right?
And also, I don't know if you saw the promo video I posted on the HERetics page, but like I meant to do that several days ago and forgot until 4:00 this afternoon.
Listen, it happens.
And then was like, what do I do?
Well, I enjoyed the promo and
Me
that really
too.
great TikTok chair.
Me too.
Raise your hand if you got conned into buying the TikTok chair.
We both
Rachel
have
and I are
one.
both raising our hands. Did you raise your hand, April? Did you buy it?
I actually don't know what the TikTok chair is. I thought we were just raising our hands. I thought
Oh,
we were the
no.
TikTok chair.
No,
You
it's
don't
a
know what
chair.
the TikTok chair
What is the TikTok chair?
You can like cross your legs.
It's like an extra
In a
wide desk
chair?
chair. Yeah.
It's like an extra wide desk chair, and it's so extra wide that I'm not sitting on mine right now because I can't get it into
Fit
my
it?
bedroom. I need to take it back apart
Oh.
to get it into my bedroom.
It's
'cause
nice.
It's too
We're
big for
just
my
both
door.
surprised because, at least for us on our TikTok pages, it was like an inundation of
Yeah.
ads for the TikTok chair. It was very viral.
April, I think at this point we're well aware that we have very different feeds than you.
I'm so curious. You're like, what's the ad that you get the most? Do you have any recurring like
The
TikTok
scrubber.
shop?
Uh,
The electric
I get-
scrubber for your shower.
I get like
Oh, I get that one.
tea.
Tea.
I feel like I got tea. Oh, and the Trolls movie. I've been
No,
served the
not
Trolls
not like paid promotive
Oh.
Like TikTok
ads.
shop.
Actual TikTok
I
shop.
don't know if I get anything from TikTok shop.
What?
Honestly, though, I haven't really scrolled a ton as much as I used to. So maybe that's it. Or maybe I just keep scrolling. I don't pay
You just have a
attention.
robo scroller on your finger.
I'm
You're
pretty
like,
quick.
boom,
possible.
Like I'm
boom,
like,
boom,
nope,
boom,
nope,
boom,
nope,
boom.
nope. I'll watch this. Nope, nope.
I'm more like that now because so much of TikTok is TikTok shop.
I save a lot for later and then never go back and watch it.
Same.
Hmm.
I love your glass, your goblet. What's
Thanks.
is that a
is a cool glass.
snifter?
No, this is a brandy glass. So yeah, it's a giant snifter. This is the glass, Abby. Remember when I told you my work husband sent me those 2 Waterford glasses?
do.
These are my birthday Waterford glasses from my work husband.
Ooh.
Dancing.
Work husband. He has a real life wife, so he's
Mm.
just
You
my
said work husband.
I
You
know, but
said
she
work
went,
husband.
"Woo," so then I wanted to make sure that
Oh.
it's clear that he has a real life wife who is lovely, but he is my
And
work
what are you
husband.
drinking in your giant brandy snifter? Is it brandy?
It
I
is not
almost
br
asked you if it was snifter.
it is not brandy, it is bourbon. Have we ever met?
I
Have
don't know.
we?
I need to check and see. Can you, Rachel, can you see who all is in the place right now?
No, and I don't look at what are
Okay.
you doing? What's
Because I
happening?
have to make sure my husband isn't watching because I have to tell you that I bought him a little present and it's basically like to take because he travels for work, and I
Mhm.
found these packets of like crystallized lemon. So if you're a tea drinker and you want lemon on the go kind of a vibe. And so I made him a little thing that's like a little bottle of cinnamon and a couple little bottles of bourbon and some those lemon packets and some honey packets so he can make hot
A
toddies
hot toddy.
in the hotel.
He
This week.
doesn't watch our show, so he's not gonna hear this.
He does not watch our show because he's a
Thanks,
bad
Erin.
husband. No, he's not a bad husband. Anyway, I am drinking a hot toddy right now. April, what are you drinking?
A tangerine LaCroix.
LaCroix.
This is so
April,
on
how many
brand.
beverages do you have in front of you?
Ooh.
How many?
Oh, the fact that you asked that, like, why
Just
would I have more
one.
than oh god.
I have 2.
Rachel?
Wait, are we supposed to have more than one?
No,
I
I'm just checking
I
something.
normally have, like, 3, but I don't have a water right now, so I have a Diet Coke and a bourbon.
I have a water over there.
I have my water and my hot toddy, and then I have a hard pineapple cider because I wanted to try it.
Is it good?
No.
Anyway,
Good talk.
I am so happy to be back and to see you guys, so
Mhm.
show
were
is
We're
great.
very happy that you're back, and do you wanna know why?
Why?
Because ever since you made a TikTok reminding us all about Brandon's love letter to you, I literally have not stopped thinking about it,
Yeah,
and I know you're planning a little treat for us here
little
today in
dramatic
honor
reading.
of I really wanna hear it.
So listen, to do a
Give us
really
the
fast catch
backstory.
up on this, if you don't follow me on TikTok, you're gonna be like, "Who is Brandon?" Brandon is this guy. He's a pastor. Well, he was a pastor down in Florida. He lost his church. Who is just like a really terrible person. And last year, he got a little bit of attention one time because he owns Dominion Dating, which is like about pairing people hi Catherine, pairing people together who understand that
It's like a
we
dating site free of feminists and soy boys, which was a
that is
direct
exactly
quote.
I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
the tagline. They believe in Christendom and that the world is going to eventually be Christendom, but
You couldn't pay me enough to date the men on that website.
no, oh my gosh, no.
What if you were undercover with a hidden camera?
Listen, if I didn't have to pay to do it, I probably would. I probably would at this point. But anyway, so last year Brandon called me a skank on Twitter, and I think that's hysterical because it is not 1999. Like nobody
He's
So
says
also a
bad.
that.
pastor.
Also a pastor. So I made a TikTok, and then it just kind of like snowballed where we figured out more about him and some other things that he had done, and I started getting emails and contact forms on my website being filled out from people in his town and some people that were in Texas where his church was, but I think Texas where his church was before that. And just like people ready to tell me anything and everything about this guy. These 2 women in particular had been trying to get him out of Freeport, Florida, where he was a pastor for a long time. So this was like their moment. They had somebody with a platform and they were like telling me all of this stuff. So Brandon was like stalking my TikTok and he was loving it. Like he kept talking on his blogs about how he was a new hashtag on TikTok. And I'm like, bro, there's 5 videos about you and I made all of them.
And to be clear, at the time, you had less followers than you have now.
I think I had like 85,000 when it
Which,
happened.
as someone with like 90, that's still a pretty small. So the fact that he was like, I am TikTok famous because this
Mhm.
TikTok influencer.
So he I like to say that Brandon when he was in English class in high school heard, if you can't think of a good word to use, consult your thesaurus. And Brandon does at every every turn.
He's like Joey in
Joey.
that Friends
Yes,
episode.
he is like Joey. April, do you know what we're talking about?
I mean, I know Joey and Friends.
No, but like when he's writing his speech he wants to give at Chandler and Monica's
Oh, yes.
wedding.
Yes,
This is
yes.
so that is him. So are you good if I read just this one part of the blog that's about me?
Please.
Okay.
Yeah,
So let me set it up that he has already written like 18 paragraphs about these two women down in
When did
Freeport.
he write this? When is this from?
He wrote this. He has a new blog, so I can't tell the date, but I feel like it was last summer.
Okay.
He wrote this last summer. So he's talking about these two women. When the mean girls of Freeport go slumming, they go all the way. This time they rented an 18-passenger van, drove down to the Big Easy, parked on Bourbon Street, found the skankiest bar in town, went straight to the back, gave a password to a big, hairy man, and followed him down a long, dark corridor strewn with the bodies of passed-out crack addicts, before finally reaching a rusty door underneath a dimly flickering neon sign that read, TikTok. As they opened the door, sulfuric smoke billowed out and a dark, shadowy figure summoned them to gather round. Meet Rachel.
A dark, shadowy figure.
Meet Rachel. Rachel runs a mudslinging smut channel on TikTok, proudly dedicated in large part to slandering pastors. She's a veritable geyser of vulgarity, spewing and sputtering profanity as she mocks faithful Christians and pastors, bragging that she has a long list of names she plans to target. She boasts over and over again her spiritual gift is pettiness, and she is not wrong. Small-minded spitefulness is her brand, and bitter, misandric women come from all over to get their petty fix in her sadistic man-bashing sessions. It goes on. Literally, the next one, he talks about when I dressed down a pastor for his sin of encouraging Christian women to dress modestly. And he says, in order to demonstrate how moderate and reasonable she is, she dons a low-cut shirt, intentionally exposing her breasts as she tells the pastor, I have great expletive breasts and I can expletive wear whatever I want, which I'd like to correct because A, I just wear those shirts all the time. It wasn't like intentionally. And I love that he put expletive, but then he lied and said breasts because I totally said tits. Like I totally
Did he write out the word expletive?
He wrote out expletive. I have great expletive breasts and I can expletive wear whatever I want. He calls me an obscene R-rated accuser of the brethren.
I would have business cards printed up with the, are you kidding me?
Mhm.
Are you kidding me?
That's-
We have to get you. I mean, genuinely, Rachel, we need
I
to
would
get
do
you
it.
like a hello, my name is sticker that says
I
that
would
or
do it.
something.
Mhm.
And I will not, I mean, I'll spare you because there's about 5 more paragraphs dedicated to me. But the only thing that I don't like, and he repeats this on a few other blogs and on Twitter too, is that he says that I gave out his personal cell phone number and email and directed people to go to his church's like website. And I never did any of that, like ever. Not one time. So like that actually does make me mad because I'm like, bro, I did not do that.
My favorite part of this, though, is that he really gives himself away when he says that you boast over and over that pettiness is your spiritual gift. And I want to be like, over and over, Brendan. How would you know that?
Yeah.
How many videos did you watch?
Yeah.
How many times did you
You
watch
like me,
Rachel's-
don't you, Brandon?
How many times did you watch the cleavage video, Brandon?
The expletive breast. How many times?
I have to watch it again to make sure I have the quote correct.
I don't know if you guys remember this. Do you remember that his wife DM'd me on Instagram
I do
and
recall.
was like asking why I was trying to ruin her husband's life and like
Oh my God, that's so much.
it is so much. So anyway, he came back around. The reason why I talked about him this week is because he rebranded and now he is JB Durham. And new Twitter, new website, new blog. He's writing a book. And like the picture on the website, like his name on it on the book is JB Durham. Like he's definitely rebranding. And I'm not saying that's because of me. I'm just saying I think it's because of like everything that happened in his like wake of not just this church, but several of them. And so I just wanted to remind the world that that is Brandon Durham. And I never go away.
What
I'm
is his
here.
book about?
Oh.
The order that God intended.
Oh,
you
of
know,
course he is.
men.
Also,
Men
the
at the top,
blog that
obviously.
the blog that he wrote, I feel like he has, like, a secret desire to write smut.
I think he does. I think he's like,
Well, I think
I mean,
he's
it's
read
read
one too
really
many,
smutty.
like, nickel dime store mystery, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Like the old
for sure.
gumshoe, like, "She walked in with legs longer than a tree trunk wrapped in nylon
I just
with a
don't
seam up the
understand
back."
why the
You know what I
crack
mean?
addicts came into this. Like, where did that even come from? Like,
Oh, because you're a peddler of destruction, and nothing says peddler of destruction like sulfuric smoke, dimly lit neon, and crack addicts strewn
Also,
about the
why
floor.
is TikTok described like it's a speakeasy in
I
the
just
back?
where do you
Like,
wanna
anyone
go?
can download
No,
TikTok.
literally, he acts like I wanna be like, "Bro, have you been going to OnlyFans and
Right.
thinking that you're on TikTok? Because
'Cause this is not it's not the same thing, my
it's
guy.
not
It's not the same
it's
thing.
not
It's
the den
different.
of iniquity you seem to think it is."
Anyway, hi, Brandon. Just in case you have, like, a Google alert on
Just
your
in
name,
case
I'm gonna put
Or
you
you're
in
still
JB
listening.
JB, if you're
JB
Brandon,
Durham.
yeah.
we just wanted to tell you, we really appreciate all of your adjectives, and we'd like you to keep using them.
And also, I do have great tits, and I will wear whatever the fuck I want.
Mm.
So anyway, so there's
Anyway,
that.
well, I
Moving
appreciate it because
along.
that was, like, genuinely Rachel made a TikTok about this and was like, if I in the TikTok, you cracked the joke, like, "If you haven't heard his blog to me," and I immediately had the thought, like, "I have heard it so many times, and it just never gets old. It's
Never.
always good.
It's
It's
so
always
good.
funny."
He just, like, he clearly wants to be a writer. I'm with you, April.
Clearly
Like,
one,
he just
yeah.
wants
It's
to
like a love letter to you.
It really is.
You should,
I'm
like,
not
print it out and frame
joking.
it.
Veritable geyser of vulgarity is the nicest thing I've ever been called.
Ugh.
Like, it really is. I remember when I found the blog, one of the people from Freeport sent it to me, and I, like, felt like my heart was racing in, like, a euphoric way as I
Right.
was reading it, like, "Oh my god, this is
This is my
amazing."
favorite thing anyone has ever said about me.
I want those to be in, like, my wedding vows one day if I ever
Oh
get
my god,
married.
please.
You are a
Do
veritable
you,
geyser.
whoever you are, take this veritable geyser of vulgarity to make you a lawfully
And,
wedded
like,
With
3
great
people will
dark
laugh.
expletive
shadowy figure.
tits.
With great expletive tits.
Oh my god. Please let me officiate your wedding so that I can put this in.
And then April will be the only person laughing, like, my mom will be, like, horrified. What is happening? Anyway,
Oh, it's good
anyway,
times.
Well, listen,
yes.
I love basically being like, "Hey, here's this thing we talked about offline. Let's talk about it online."
Mhm.
And I don't remember how we started having this conversation on Snapchat. If it's stems from a place we shouldn't talk about, then we don't have to talk about
No.
where it came from. But we started talking about this movie, this evangelical Christian movie
Yeah.
that April, I don't think you've seen, that Rachel and I have both seen, and apparently both love a little more than we're comfortable
So this is
admitting.
how it started because we were
Okay,
talking
well,
about
try to remember.
the Bethlehem movie. What's that movie that's out right now, April?
Yes, the one
Oh, Journey to Bethlehem.
oh my god, and how I would really like to live stream a viewing of that
Yes.
stoned.
So we're
That
talking
yep.
about that, and my friend from college was a producer on it, and that's how we started talking about it because we were talking about all, like, the backlash people are giving of it, like, we were how just in, like, personal conversation, the 3 of us were talking about this, and then I
This
mentioned
is
that
the
he
sort
had
of thing we talk
we
about
do,
in
that's
group.
literally what we talk about. So, that he had posted about it, so then I started talking about him and how he has acted in some Christian movies through the years or whatever, and he was in this movie, and I started to say that, like, I actually really liked it, and I hate that I liked it, and then we figured out that Abby had seen it, and April, you haven't it's called The Song. Have you seen
I
it?
think I know of it. I don't think I've seen it.
It's, like, loosely based on the story of King David
Hmm.
Yeah, like a
Okay.
modern like, he
in,
becomes
like,
a
a real weird also, if King David were Elvis. Like, if the stories of Elvis and King David became, like, a hybrid story.
Is there a Bathsheba character?
There
so he
is
becomes
a
a famous singer, and it's the girl he's touring with.
Mm.
which is unfortunate because they kinda portray her as, like, a vixen who
Mhm.
lures him into
Oh, of
iniquity.
course they
Course they
do.
do.
Yeah.
Of course they
But
do.
it's obnoxious, but I love it. I
It
really
was a really good movie. I'm not gonna lie.
So then I started thinking about like, look, there are just some things from our time as evangelicals that like you just still like I still sing to Carmen,
Oh,
Right.
Carmen.
you know? So I just was like,
Yes.
what are our guilty pleasures, our evangelical guilty pleasures? Like, I don't want to go
Okay.
back to the church, but I want to pop in some old school DC talk once in a while.
Sure. One of mine would definitely be CeCe Winan singing Alabaster Box. Like,
God, I forgot about that song until this
Oh.
exact second.
I could literally still like burst into tears if someone was playing it or singing it live.
I'm literally gonna make a note to listen to it because I forgot that song existed.
When
And
she's
I
like,
used to
"You
love that.
weren't there," I'm like crying, like
It's a good one.
crying. It's a good one.
It
You
is
have
a
any,
good one.
April?
I still like VeggieTales.
Like you actively watch VeggieTales?
No, but I could watch. I do actively still listen to the VeggieTales songs, like with my kids and stuff, because
You Are My Cheeseburger was my favorite.
they're fun.
Really?
You Are My Cheeseburger and the Pirates Who Don't Do Anything.
Yeah. The
And
Grapes of Wrath. You remember that one?
Mhm.
Yeah, the grapes.
I
Of
got
Wrath.
inordinately
Yeah.
excited. I don't know if either of you, because I'm older than April, but a different denomination than Rachel. There was an old cartoon called Superbook.
Yep, watch that.
They
Don't
do
look
you
it
know
up.
that they like redid it?
I
They
do.
they rebooted it, and I saw it on Prime the other day, and I felt this thrill within me. So I was like, "Superbook!" And then I was immediately like, "Oh, whoa. What was
I don't
that?"
remember that one.
And then
So
it was like the new one, and I was like, "Ugh, gross. I don't care about that."
did they used to mail them out in like purple VHS tapes? Like I feel like we would get them in the mail and we would watch them.
I
The
have no
old ones.
idea, but only because we got them at church.
Gotcha.
Lori, I do remember Bible Man. I
Ugh,
loved Bible Man.
he was also purple.
So when I worked at CBN, the Superbook studios were like right down the hall. So I
Oh,
saw
that's
they had
funny.
like super
That
big.
sentence, when I worked at CBN Superbook Studios.
I will admit, I have like a soft spot for salty.
Mm, I love
Salty.
salty.
When my
Oh,
kids were little, I wanted them they liked to listen to music as they fell asleep, and all the salty tapes are on Spotify. And it was like easy and a little nostalgic.
Yeah.
And the basic tenets of these songs are not really that different than like a Bluey episode, you know?
let
Kindness.
everything that has breath praise the Lord. You know
Right,
that
like,
one?
they don't really get far into, like, Christian nationalism or, like like, end times theology, so it's very innocent, so I let them listen to it, and so I am very
Okay. Have
I
you
do love
watched it though
Yes, both
recently?
versions. I recently just showed my 12-year-old son because I realized I had never shown him the videos, and so I said, "Well, I think Salty's very creepy," and he said, "You think Salty's creepy? That's not kind." And I was like, "Yeah, but you're thinking of a different version of Salty than what I'm
Yes.
talking about."
Totally
And so
different.
I pulled up the video and showed it to him, and he was horrified.
Listen,
He was
Salty
horrified.
Salty is child's play compared to his dog Blooper.
Yeah, oh,
This
man.
dog is like looks like Pennywise.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Those
Soup's
but,
creepy.
like, I just have, like, a soft spot for
I
it.
loved it.
What
Okay,
about
what else?
McGee and Me?
I loved McGee and Me.
I haven't ever watched McGee and Me as an adult,
Mm.
but, like, I did love it then. So it's
Mhm.
not anything I still engage with, but, like, I don't hate it.
McGee and Me was Lizzie McGuire before Lizzie McGuire was the thing.
Mm, it's true.
And Christian.
This is not a secret that I do still love Jennifer Knapp. Obviously, that's not a
You do?
secret. I
This is
didn't
brand new
didn't know if you knew
information.
that, but I like literally earlier today had what's the song? No temptation sees a man. And I hate that I'm singing like those lyrics because I don't like hold to that anymore. So I'm like annoyed by the lyrics. I get stuck in my head, but neither does she. So I'm like, okay, cool. We can sing the song together, Jennifer, and not believe these parts of
Oh my
of it
god.
anymore. But I would listen to her any day. And
I would say
obviously go see her with
almost
April.
any road trip, I will listen to Reliant K.
Oh,
Nice.
fair.
Like,
I
unironically, I still love Relient K
I
and
do
Switchfoot.
too, but I listened to the mood ring song that they have with my
Oh,
daughter, and
yeah.
like 4 lines into it, she was like, "This
It
is offensive." And I was like, "It is. It is
is.
actually quite misogynistic."
It is.
You
Ooh,
know, I
good point.
sang out loud to that song, and as I'm singing it, I was like, "This is kind of problematic," but I was just like, "You know what? I'm just gonna enjoy it and just ignore it for the next 2 minutes and 15 seconds."
I also feel like it doesn't count because Matt Thiessen from Reliant K is an ex-evangelical now, so
You
I
guys
has he
know,
I didn't know he officially announced, but I assumed because Similar opened for them.
right.
yeah.
Mason, I always say his last name wrong.
Meninga?
Men
Meninga?
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 Mason on, Twitter
Ex-evangelical Mason on Twitter.
that
Yeah.
trolls people. My favorite is that people that are being, like, genuinely sincere with him, like, "You are going to hell, you're not a Christian." He's like, "If I'm not a Christian, why does Reliant K follow me on Twitter?" And they're like, "That doesn't matter, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, he just trolls them so hard. How I'm not a Christian, how come I know every word to every Reliant K song? Like, every time he says that, I laugh so hard.
Oh my gosh.
Mason,
It's
whatever your last name is, we love you.
I know,
it's
and they
so
take him so
funny.
seriously too. They, like, double down, like, "That doesn't count. The Bible says you have to be born again."
See, I knew you didn't know anything about this. Oh my
Oh
gosh.
my
I
gosh.
love those sorts of accounts, the accounts that are people our age who are ex-evangelicals, but who are also in that space of just like, I'm just gonna troll people,
Yeah,
like,
they're
just be
just
petty about
trolling.
it because there's just it's so I don't know about either of you, but, like, I still have a lot of ex-evangelicals in my life, and I'm sorry, evangelicals in my life. My computer just gave me a notification.
Mm.
I still have a lot of evangelicals in my life, so I don't get to be out loud, petty, goofy about that sort of stuff in tons of circumstances.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate those. Like Thanksgiving. Do you guys do Thanksgiving with evangelical family? How does that go?
Y Yes, but
Yes, but
it like, a lot of them have deconstructed
Mhm.
because of like, we just had Thanksgiving with Beecher's family, and they all know about Beecher being non-binary, so, yes,
Mhm.
I would say they're still evangelical, but they're, like, affirming, for
Yeah.
one,
that's
and
good.
yeah, so and then, like, extended evangelical people might come in and out, but they're never there long enough for anything substantial
Yeah.
to happen.
So you guys have like, oh, I'm sorry, Rachel, tell me about your
No,
Thanksgiving.
you're good. I was just gonna say that, like, we don't mine's just my immediate family, and so nobody's evangelical in it. And I'm
Is
not
your
trying to
mom
be
not?
so that's what I was gonna like, this is not to be heavy, and I don't mean to be, but, like, my dad was, and
Mhm.
so, like, we still prayed up until, like, this year, like, because he would still wanna pray, and so everybody was like, we went with it, everybody did. But we didn't this year. And my mom's just really passive when it comes to anything, like, I think my mom is still like, my mom is a Christian, and I think she would consider herself, like, an evangelical Christian, but, like, didn't go to church or, like,
Yeah.
like,
So do you guys
or
both
care about that.
not have to deal with like the awkward, I feel like everybody talks a lot about the dangers of like religious differences and political differences around a Thanksgiving table, like more so than Christmas.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
so,
for some reason.
and then I don't have that experience because I don't really spend those holidays with like my very evangelical family.
Yeah. I think that I don't know, obviously, everybody has a different story, but up until probably 7, maybe 7 to 10 years ago, we were not with just our immediate family. Like, we had growing up, I was going to Thanksgiving at my dad's cousins, and he had 46 first cousins, 46 first 7. And so there was like 100 people at our Aunt Lisa's house. And so like everybody that was evangelical. And then like even then, like we would with my mama's side of the family, like everybody. And so I think maybe it ends up being more at Thanksgiving than Christmas because people tend to be with more extended family at
Yeah.
Thanksgiving, and Christmas tends to be more intimate, I think, maybe. I don't know.
Mhm.
See, and that's not just like Literally for Thanksgiving, it was just me, my kids, and my husband, and we ate charcuterie all day and watched every Thanksgiving episode of Friends. Like a couple years ago, I was like, I'm done. I'm not Thanksgiving anymore. No more
Yeah,
Thanksgiving.
you're not very
Mm.
thankful. I
I'm
knew
not.
it.
I'm super ungrateful.
I knew it. But I think even just like not holiday, but just like I was at a baby shower a couple weeks ago with my very evangelical family, and you just
Mhm.
like a couple things get said, and it's like, just I'm in somebody else's home. And so
True.
they weren't overtly offensive things, right? Like I'm gonna get out of somebody's house and say something if something's, but just stuff that like I'm like, oh my gosh, but I sit there and bite my tongue a little bit.
I think it's a little different too now because like I've had hard conversations like with extended family or like evangelical family like in the last few years that were frustrating for
Sure.
both sides. So I think it was a combination of this probably isn't very beneficial for our relationship to have these conversations. But or and those people just kind of stopped coming around or like stopped bringing topics up because they knew like they're not going to let this go. I can't just
Right.
let this,
Mhm.
I can't say this thing. It's a combination of that, but then also like I've had really hard conversations with some of my in-laws, and now like it was really hard for a couple of years because they didn't understand my perspective, but now they do.
Mm.
Oddly, like they've actually moved. So
Yeah.
so then it's like, oh, now we can't, we're still having the conversations, but it's much more of like, oh, can you believe like this is how it is? And it's much more like conversational, less confrontational.
Yeah. It is
Awesome.
interesting. I do feel like somewhere in the last couple years, like the lines became so clear that it's like we're just not even gonna. I'm ready. I am ready at any moment, and I feel like anytime I'm around family or friends who are more conservative in their faith and more conservative in their politics, because they know I'm ready and I've proven myself ready so much in the past. Now they're like what you said, April, where they're like, I'm just not. I'm not gonna.
Yeah. Well, and
Like,
I
I've
think that
caught 1 or 2 times where someone would say something and then look over at me like, "Oh, fuck. I ruined it. Oh god. This is gonna
She's gonna
suck.
go off now.
She's gonna go." And
Mhm.
I kinda love that they're afraid of me.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think Beecher coming out too was a big part, especially on their
Yeah.
side of the family, because it was
Sure.
it was really dramatic like the first year, and then people like noticed that Beecher just seemed normal. Still, I
Right.
don't know what they were expecting, but they were
Right.
expecting.
They didn't grow a second head or,
Yeah.
like, change the color of their eyes or skin, like, their tongue didn't fall off.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like, I don't know, it's just like, I don't know, they just have learned that that they it's like I don't know, it's like more personal because a lot of the
Yeah.
stuff they would say would be like anti-queer, but now,
Mhm.
like, even if they still hold those same beliefs, it's a lot harder to say, like, really bigoted things when you're looking at the person that you're
Yeah.
talking about, like, in the eyes. So I think that's a combination, and then this is gonna be a little morbid, but most of like, the most conservative evangelical people in my family have died.
Ah.
So
As soon as I understood where that was going, I was like, "No."
Well, and from like I've had like I've struggled with this last couple years of like there are certain things that I good and bad. Maybe it was like cowardly in some ways, and in other ways it wasn't because it wasn't, a make or break thing. But where I might not have talked about something out of respect for my mama and papa when they were living. Like
Mhm.
I'm just not gonna do that. That with them gone, which is terrible, I like feel a little freedom to be a little bit more outspoken because I don't have to run the risk of disrespecting them. Two people that I care about, like in that way. And even with like my dad, like I mentioned, like he would have been the only one. Like with if you listen to last week or last month's episode, which I never uploaded, so I'm gonna upload them back to back here. That I lost my dad a few months ago, and that is 99.9% of anything that has happened and come from losing dad has been terrible, right? And the 0.0001%, I still would rather have him than have that. But one of it is that my dad was probably um in like a faith was holding the purest to a faith tradition out of all of us. And so there are my TikTok, I'd never watched my TikTok, right? So who I am on TikTok is not necessarily how I would speak to people in conversations. And so I always was respectful of my dad in that. And there's a little bit of freedom that like, I don't have to feel like I'm disappointing him if I am now more outward and having certain opinions
Yeah.
offline in real life here. Um, than I would have like been like, okay, dad will get upset if I say this and I
Yeah.
would cut my mouth shut.
I get that completely. And I do think for me that was like a learning curve of the part about not necessarily if someone in my family or my friend group or like people that I was around, if they said something harmful, I would have stepped in no matter what. Like I
Sure.
would have said something no matter what. If they said something theological that I disagree with, I think there's been seasons. I think about like the mythos of when Kirk Cameron first got saved and how he like alienated everyone around him and was so aggressive. I feel like I was that way in my immediate evangelicalness,
Yes.
specifically not so much when I ventured out of evangelicalism or even out of the church, but really when my faith transitioned heavily.
Mhm.
I feel like I very much had this like if you talked about worship music, I was going to tell you about how it was manipulation, like
Yeah.
which isn't necessary. I didn't
Yeah.
have a good sight of what conversations were necessary
Yeah.
and what conversations were just me kind of grinding an axe with people who were like, okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
if you don't like worship music, that's fine.
I think that just reminds me of what I try to like hold in tension is that the pendulum of dogma can swing every way, and that we can be
Mhm.
as dogmatic in our new version of faith or our lack of faith or
Yeah,
different faith than we were the thing that we criticize. Don't become the thing you hate is
for
basically like
sure.
the thing I try to remind myself. Like you can be just as dogmatic, even in like I don't want so the certain people in my family that do listen to my podcast. Don't be offended by this, but um, there was like a couple years there where a few of my immediate family had moved in their faith. I'm not sure how everybody identifies now. I'm pretty sure like atheist or agnostic, something between those two or the same. Um, and like where it'd be maybe Thanksgiving, and we were at my aunt's house with my mom and papa, and everybody was praying, like we were praying before the meal, and there was definitely a high sense of Jesus in the room that there'd be like the little bit of mocking faces at each other like
Mm,
and I remember being so annoyed by that because I'm like, "Bro, just close your eyes and
right.
like
Just
make a
be chill,
grocery list
dude.
in your head or something right now instead of being too cool to pray." Like you don't have to do that. It's not
Right.
actually necessary. This is not harmful, right?
Mhm.
Well,
Like
and me not making noise or movement while someone else is praying isn't the same thing as me endorsing that prayer or
right.
praying with you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, you
Right.
can be respectful of the person without participating in the theology.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I
We
was
have on a sorry, April, but
no, go
like
ahead.
we as a whole of Christianity in this country have kind of asked that of people for so long, right?
Mhm.
Like having prayers at certain political ceremonies or these things like where there's like we've
I
had
love
people
you, but I
who
don't support you.
don't believe in prayer have like have stood there and gone along with it. The least we can do moving it is do the same thing for
Right.
the people in our lives that we do respect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, April.
No, I was just gonna piggyback off of what y'all were saying, and that I think part of the conversations too is me like calming down. Like I feel like when I first left evangelicalism, it was like I have to right all the wrongs and like be or like
It's
much
just me.
right. I was just much more vocal about everything. I was seeing problems everywhere and like
Mhm.
and then
How does no one else see this?
yeah, and like and but now I've just kind of calmed down, I guess. And
Yeah.
like, there's obviously harmful things that I will speak up for, but, like, I was just visiting with a friend who used to be my neighbor. So we were never, like, besties, but we were friends by proximity. And she was just, like, pouring her heart to me about just some really hard situations and, like, tears. And it does seem, like, really hopeless, like, not a good situation. And she was just like, "But, like, I don't know how people get through this without Jesus. I know Jesus is letting me go through this for a reason." And, and, like, I can't take that from her. Like, that's the
Right.
only thing
Yes.
keeping her going right now.
Yeah.
And, I
Well,
just
actually,
I know, like, what
can
a
you
I can't be a
imagine?
dick and be
You
like,
would be
"You
such a
really
dick
think
if you
God's
did that.
making you go through this?" Yeah, no, but yeah, it's like just like little things like, that's not harming her in anything in this situation. It's helping her. It's
Right.
Yeah.
giving her hope and strength to carry on. And who am I
Mhm.
to take that from somebody?
Well, and like
Yeah.
somebody utilizing their belief system to sustain themselves and have strength. I Do I agree with it theologically? No. Do I care? No. I don't
No.
like they're believing something and it's not harming anyone else in that belief, and it's like a systemic belief that needs to be tackled from the like top down because
Mhm.
it's a pastor or a Bible study or something. You know what I mean? Like my voice in that. And if someone but the difference is if I was with someone and they were the one experiencing that hard time and someone else said to them, Jesus is letting you go through this to
Yeah,
like make you
that's
stronger. I would step in
sure.
Right.
and I'd be like, I don't think that that's fair to say. And I wouldn't like try to give a theology class in that moment. I would just be like, I would be super careful about how I say these things because it kind of makes it sound like Jesus is doing this. And I don't think you mean that. And I want to be
Yeah.
clear.
Yeah.
Because I think that's where my line is. Like, is it causing someone harm? If not, then
Right.
I'm not gonna insert myself into it.
I think also that makes like mine said earlier, like we can be as dogmatic in our lack of faith as we were in our faith. Um, a lot of people who have I don't want to say like identify as an atheist, but maybe they do online. They can talk as if there's no value in any religion or faith.
Right.
And that is and I'm not mad at them. It's something I had to learn along the way too, that like that's actually like centering white supremacy in a lot of things, because there is really beautiful ways that faith has shown up for people and people groups through the years. That's
Right.
not just Western evangelicalism, right? Um, and my brother, and I promise you, I'm not going to talk about my dad on every podcast, but
Yeah,
Well,
you should
none of
talk
us.
about your dad as
We can talk
much as
about your
you
dad.
want.
Tell
I
me more
know.
about your dad.
I know, but my brother, who is I want to say atheist, but he might be agnostic. But
I'll
has been
ask him.
for
He follows me on Instagram now.
you can ask him years and years and years and years, right? Like he deconstructed before deconstruction was cool, right? Um, he said in the week before Dad died, and it was like kind of caught me off guard that he said it of all people, was that like my dad's faith absolutely sustained him through so much physical anguish for decades,
Mhm.
decades and decades. And
Yeah.
you both read his funeral. I think that showed in a lot of the people that spoke about him, and like his faith did sustain him through things that I couldn't physically endure. I don't think I could.
Right.
And my brother said like it can't be without value. And
Yeah.
like, so he doesn't hold the belief, he doesn't think it's true. And he even said that, he goes, something doesn't have to be true to have value. And so my brother doesn't believe that it's true, but he sees the value of that faith in a person who held to sustain it. And so that even checked me a little bit in this whole thing, because like April, you said you just think you calmed down. I think when we started talking about all the things that each of us started talking about separately, and we felt heard online by other people or offline in circles too, it's like, how do you not get excited to want to talk about it more?
Mhm.
And I got nasty sometimes. And like, I mean, obviously we know like that's my brand, but like nasty in times it didn't call for it, because I just got so like, oh my God, I feel seen and heard by these people. And I probably did and said some things to people that hold their faith differently than I do that were just unnecessarily
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah.
I get that.
I
Yeah.
had to block a guy the other day who was a gay atheist, and I know that because he told me in his monologue, on Twitter. But, like, I was, like, talking about like, I made a tweet, like, it like, "You can be queer and a Christian, like, stop gatekeeping," whatever. Like, I'm clearly
Mhm.
talking to Christians, and,
Right.
like, there were a ton of queer people of faith who still have some faith, in some way, that were like, "Thank you." Like, "Yes, like, I know that we can." And then this dude came in and just like copy and pasted all of the homosexuality is an abomination, like Bible verses to be like, y'all don't even know your own Bible, blah, blah, like get out, like stop believing Sky Daddy. And I'm like, that's not helpful.
Right.
Like, and the annoying thing was there was a conservative woman who was also arguing with the same verses And then they tag teamed and they were like, oh, atheist, conservative, Christian. They're like, high five. I'm like,
We hate the
no,
same
there's
people.
something wrong here. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so I do think I think so much of it also depends on where you're at with your faith.
Mhm.
Because like April, there was a time that you would have told me that and I would have been like, where, how long ago? Well, today you said, are your replies still up? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like,
Right.
because just a crumb of it, I would have felt compelled to. Yeah. How often did we do that on TikTok, on Twitter, wherever?
Yeah.
And I have found that as my faith has shifted, I'm less inclined to care about like those sorts of things now. I'm like, oh God, it sounds like so much work. I'm
Mhm.
like all cozy and I'm in a good headspace and I don't want to
Yeah.
do it. And the way that that plays out in my relationships is where it's like, not only do I get to this point where I go, I don't need to interject or interrupt, but as my faith has shifted, I've started changing how I talk, like in my relationships. I think Rachel, this might have been you one of the times that I really first noticed it. I said something about your mom and about I felt stuck because the way that I felt programmed to respond to you was to say I'll be praying for her,
Mhm.
Mm.
but I don't pray anymore. And
Right.
it felt so inauthentic to say, but also I could not think of a non-religious expression that like
Yeah.
said the same thing that didn't feel gross and like I she's in my thoughts. Somehow that sounds even grosser to me. And I just
Right.
remember I stopped and I was like, I don't know what to say. And so I think I said to you like whatever the, agnostic equivalent of I'm praying for her is, that's what I'm doing.
I think you did say that.
And
Yeah.
you said to me, well, I think she would be happy to know, like she would be okay knowing that you said you were praying for her. And I had this really intense thought because I realized in like a public space like TikTok or Twitter, my pendulum has swung so much further towards I don't care. But like
Right.
in my private life, my pendulum has swung a little bit more towards I care
Mhm.
because it's not just about an outward thing, it's also about an inward thing. And what I'm saying matching where I'm at, and I didn't realize I had moved so far internally that something like I'm praying for you wouldn't match internally.
Yeah.
I feel like when we all first started this podcast 1.5 years ago,
Seriously, we're like so old
we're
now.
so old. We were all in, I think, a very similar place theologically and like where religion is concerned.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that's true anymore.
I don't think the crazy thing is as pure as our like friendships are off of here, I don't think that we've had a semi-recent conversation about that.
I don't think we have.
Yeah.
Should we
Well,
do it on the
We
podcast?
should do it right now live.
All right.
I'm a Wiccan. I'm just kidding.
Hey.
I'm like
Nothing
that
wrong with that
was
though.
it's nothing wrong with it, but I would
Doing
have been
shock value.
surprised.
So
Yeah.
here's what's funny. I wouldn't identify as a Wiccan or anything, but like natural elements and what would be considered spell work has actually
Yeah.
become a pretty big part of my faith expression. I would not call myself a Christian anymore.
Mhm.
I wouldn't call myself not a Christian. Like God's part of it somewhere in there,
Yeah.
Mhm.
but it's much more of a very vague sort of nebulous, like the universe
Mm.
kind
Do
of
you
vibe.
own tarot cards now?
God, I own so many fucking tarot
Yeah, I know
Do you
cards.
remember we were in Cincinnati a couple years ago and
Mhm.
we went shopping and there were
Mhm.
tarot cards and you're like, "Oh, I really want this, but I just
Yep.
can't buy them yet."
Yep.
That wasn't that long
Oh,
ago.
That wasn't that long
it
ago, and now
wasn't.
I have 3 decks. I just gifted my brother a deck, and we routinely will do readings and then, like, call each other and be like, "Here's what my card said. What do you think about this?"
Can I
What
ask
do
you
you
a question?
Yeah.
Sorry, I may interrupt you. So I've thought that I've wondered this actually for a few weeks since I'm just going to ask you this now. What we're live on a show,
Oh,
so I
cool.
didn't know exactly where your faith was right now, but I could kind of see where you're going, but you just hadn't like brought it up. And again, we haven't had the conversation. But your children love church, and we've talked about that. And so
I
you
love
still
church,
go to
dude.
church.
I still go to
And
church.
what's that like for you? Like, I guess because I didn't know really where you were faith-wise, so I'm like, is it like a struggle every Sunday, or there are some parts of it that you still gel with?
So this is a sort of nuanced answer because the truth is I oh god, if anybody from my church leadership is listening,
Oh, I'm so sorry that I asked this question.
it's okay. I don't think they're listening. I wear an earbud for almost the entire service, and it's a very special kind of earbud that's like an open ear earbud. So I can like if someone's trying to talk to me, I'm not like, "What?" I can still hear everything that's happening around me. But I bring my journal and I put on EDM in my ear because I've done a lot of looking into like the connections between ADHD focus and EDM, and I journal, and I stand and I sing while they're singing, and when there's preaching I sit. And like this past Sunday I didn't go because I'd had a really hard day the day before, and I just was like, I don't want to, and I don't feel guilt about that. And I had a
Yeah.
glorious morning to myself. And my kids love it, and as long as they love it, we will continue to
Yeah,
make it a priority for them the same way we would anything that they love. But they do
sure.
love church. And part of that, like I struggle with it sometimes.
Can I ask what kind of church it is?
So it's a Lutheran church. And see, that's the other reason we go, because they're affirming, they're actively pursuing anti-racism as a church and as a staff, and partnered with, we live in an area where there are a lot of Black churches. So it's not always reasonable to expect like a not Black church to be super diverse,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
we have a lot of churches that are specific and in the specific languages or in the specific styles of specific communities. But we partner with a lot of those churches and we do a lot of stuff in the community. And that's the stuff that I care about.
Yeah.
Like if I'm going to be at a church, I want to be
Yeah.
at a church that like builds beds for, homeless shelters, and takes in queer kids, that,
Mhm.
and like partners, gives space to a blossoming Black church to use so that they can build their community.
Yeah.
That's what I care about. So it might feel different if it was a different space. And
Mhm.
I'm very honest with my kids when they ask me questions. My daughter does spells with me all the time. For her, there is nothing incongruous about spells. My dad just gave her Tibetan finger charms, our finger symbols, to like align her chakras in her prayers. So like we're very
I love it.
we're very all over the place right now. So that's where I'm at, which is a very different place.
Very spiritual and mystical.
But I
Well, I feel
do
like it was
appreciate
like you identified as like a Christian mystic for a
I
while, right?
did. And one of the things that I've recently recognized is that in Christianity, you're kind of told that your core nature is something you have to deny. Like whatever that core nature is. Like Rachel is someone who has such a beautiful voice. I would bet money that there were times that you were told not to pursue music for the wrong reasons, or
Yeah,
not
you
to
tried to
let it
use
go
it
to your
for
head, or not. And April, like you grew up in a very central position in churches as well. I'm sure you got told the same speech. Like this core thing about you is actually your deepest weakness, and it could be the thing the enemy uses to take you down. And
100%.
I
100%.
realized that, like, I have always felt like a witch. Like, I have always felt like a witch. And that natural element to my faith has always been there. And it was like something I've been denied. I've been laying at the foot of the cross
Mm.
to be a better Christian for like my entire life. Like this feels like coming home to myself in a way that
Oh, that's
I
awesome.
didn't know I wasn't at home. So that's where
Mm.
I'm at. Where are you guys at?
April, go ahead. I
Okay.
love that, by the way. Abby, I do.
Same. I still would consider myself a Christian, but I think if you asked most Christian, at least evangelicals in America, they would probably tell you that I am not.
They would absolutely say you're not.
Um, so, but I still
Abby
call
is coughing off mic. I wish you guys that were listening that could see
yeah,
her.
like full transparency. Depends who you ask. But no, I still hold a lot of like traditions. Like I do still pray. We pray with our girls every night at bedtime. I still like I find myself like habitually praying still. Like I would always pray in the car. Like I was never one to like really spend like hours praying at a time, you know, or have my quiet time. I was terrible at having a quiet time. I was so bad at being consistent. So but I would always just like pray in the car, or like when I had alone, like little like thoughts here and there, like quick little prayers. So I still do that like just by habit. And it just, I don't know if it does anything, but I
Yeah.
know it's not hurting anything, and it brings me comfort to feel like
Mhm.
I'm praying for things. Um, theologically, I don't know where I stand on like I really don't know what I believe as far as prayer, but I do know that I feel it seems like things have I do think there is something to just like speaking things into fruition and like
That's literally witchcraft.
I know, and positive. So
Welcome, Abby says.
Welcome. Welcome to the coven.
right. So
I'll
like
be mailing you your tarot cards.
I do feel like it's worked for me at different times. Who knows? Who knows if it has or not? But I do still pray. I still love Jesus.
To
I get
be clear and like echo what you're saying, I also do feel that way. And so I do find myself speaking aloud or
mhm.
quietly to myself in that way because I'm with you. And I think it was that sort of layered look that was like, man, maybe prayers really are just spells and like vice versa. Maybe spells are prayers that sort of made me blew my mind wide open. So I'm with you, April. Like there are
Yeah.
things that I still and will forever.
Yeah. And so and I think I'm a better person with faith. My faith looks a lot differently. I hold my beliefs very loosely now, and I
Mhm.
think my faith is much more uh, more humanistic in the fact that I think what I do matters a lot more than what I think
Yeah.
and like what I believe. Like and a lot of times like what I believe goes hand in hand with what I do.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I'm not gonna like I feel like how I treat someone just matters a lot more than
Yeah.
whether or not I believe that person's going to hell.
Right. Which feels like such a simple
Yeah.
equation.
It does.
Yeah.
April, do you go to church?
Uh, I mean, no, we did just move to Lexington like a few
Okay.
months ago. We did go last Sunday, actually, because Josh Scott, who's the pastor at Grace Point in Nashville, was speaking at a church here locally. It was a UCC church. So they're super affirming. They've got like Black Lives Matter and women's rights and healthcare and like the whole like list where it's like we're progressive. They're very open about it.
In case you wondered.
In case
Yeah.
you had any doubt.
Yeah. And it was good. I like honestly, I think I would be fine to not go to church. There are like I do miss that community aspect of it because that there really is no other place to replicate that on a consistent basis. But Beecher really wants to go, and I think it's good for our girls because
Mhm.
they like the community aspect too and seeing people. And honestly, I don't have any friends here really yet. Rachel's an hour away, and
Yeah,
I, you know, we still need to get together.
we do.
Um, but, there is something really beautiful about seeing Beecher in church, and it means a lot more to them because they've only been able to have, like, a Christian faith as themselves in the last couple of years, and they have a desire to have a faith as themselves,
Mhm.
and I don't know, seeing how happy it makes them to be able to walk into a place of worship and just exist as who they are, like,
Yeah.
in a dress or whatever. I see a lot of value in that, and so all that to say, we are not currently, like, members, but we're looking for, like, an affirming church to go to, but I don't know how consistent we would be because I don't want the church guilt to come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I finally got rid of it.
God, do you remember when the three of us and Beecher went to church together and it was like the first time for almost all of us in a very long time? Maybe
Yeah.
all of us.
You mean when we wept?
And then we wept
All
straight
of us
down the
cried.
line. And Rachel was the only one that had brought tissue.
No, I found them on the floor
Oh my God.
at the pew.
He was
Like, it
just
was
passing them down.
I was just passing them, and I
Oh,
thought I was just passing them to April. I
it
think
was
you were
a
sitting next
tissue
to me, and it
box.
just
Okay.
kept going further down
Like,
and
I
down
need
and
another
down.
one. I need
Ugly
another
face
one.
crying.
Yeah.
Oh my
Oh
gosh,
man.
sobbing.
Shout out
So,
Derek Terry.
yes, for sure.
Love him.
What about you, Rachel?
Um, have you guys seen on Twitter in the last few days that, like people are posting like their progression of faith? Have you seen this? Like,
No.
Oh, is
it's
it like
like
by the year?
by the year. It's like
Yeah.
2000 to 2010, I was this, and then it was this kind of progression of mostly ex-evangelicals and kind of how they ended up here. Um, I've been annoyed by the whole thing. Like, I'm not mad at anybody for doing it, obviously, like, do what you gotta do. But it's been annoying to me simply because it's just a list of a bunch of labels. And that has probably been like the biggest thing to me in terms of freeing myself of things. Was I feel no pressure to identify as anything. I
Mm.
really don't. Um, I honor other people identifying by like whatever makes them feel good. Um, but like I wouldn't I think Abby, you just said I wouldn't say I'm not a Christian, but I wouldn't say I'm like I wouldn't identify as a Christian anymore. But if you were like, say you're not a Christian, I'd be like, well, wait a minute. I don't know, like
Right.
I don't really know. But these guys that that I love to hate on TikTok or on Twitter, like if you look at their bios and stuff, it's like dispensationalist, post millennia, like they have to identify all of these things that they believe.
Calvinist,
Right.
Reformed.
I'm like, oh, we all like we know by the way you're talking.
Right.
Like the things that you're saying and doing, we know what you believe. And similar to what you just said, April, like I would just much rather show what I believe than feel like I have to have this label. And like, especially growing up the way that I did, like it was important to be Baptist, not just Christian, right?
Mhm.
And so like at some point shirked that, and that was like a big deal. People at the church that were like, I cannot believe they took Baptist out of the name, and you have to be a Baptist. Well, then I was like, no, you're supposed to be a Christian. And then now I'm kind of like, actually, you can just be you, and whatever that means for you is fine. And the fluidity of my faith over the last 2 years, I really leaned into that. Like some days I believe things that I don't believe the next day.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
that's actually okay.
And some
Like,
days I doubt things that I'm sure of. Like some day it's not like I believe this and then the next day I'm like, "Oh, I just don't believe it." Some days I'm like, "Maybe that's
maybe,
real."
I
Oh
mean, I
god.
know, maybe not. And I just don't feel like I believe in God, not the evangelical God, and not the characteristics that I came to believe about the God of the Bible. Like these, so there's like some confusion there. I know most people like want an answer. They're like, "Oh, so what do you believe?" And I don't feel the pressure to say that necessarily anymore. Because I might give you an answer that contradicts what I said 2 months ago,
Yeah.
and what I say today might contradict like 3 months from now. But I was watching this show that Abby and I might watch religiously, called Sister Wives,
Mm.
and
Way to out me.
I was watching this episode last night, and it touched on one of them leaving the faith, right? And it was how everybody else was talking about it in that moment that I was like, me, for all of those years, if somebody left the faith, I would have been like devastated for them.
It was
Their
like a death.
soul, right? It's like a death. Their soul is in jeopardy, and I held that for myself more than anybody else. And so when I
Mhm.
would doubt things, I'd be like, I could go to hell because of this. When I got rid of the belief in a literal hell, that freed up a lot, but there was still a lot of pressure to be like, I have to believe these things. And I just don't feel that one bit anymore.
Yeah.
So do I hold to some tenets of Christianity? Yes, I do. Um, but like, I don't know that I'd be like, I'm a Christian, but again, I wouldn't say I'm not one. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm
Can
Christian-ish.
I Christian-ish, evangelical-ish,
You guys could rebrand to Christian-ish.
Christian-ish. I do think it's fun though, just telling really like dogmatic Christians that I am also a Christian because it
Yeah.
Just to piss them
really
off.
I
pisses them off.
Yeah.
I also was thinking like I definitely think there was a time in my faith trajectory where I was holding on to the label of like Christian, even like progressive Christian, because I felt like the ability to have impact on the culture came with those titles.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And if I stopped calling myself a Christian, then like the on the fence m- evangelical people who are starting to kind of question because I'm not a Christian, I'll just now be seen as like a threat to it or like
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
I do think that there is truth to that, though.
Yeah, and that I had to kind of come to this place where it was like, but it's a lie. Like it doesn't feel it's not true anymore.
Yeah.
Do I want to be a liar?
I still feel that pressure, but I also still feel like I'm being genuine when I say
Yeah.
I'm still a Christian. And if that were to change, then I would hope that I would have the courage to say I'm not.
I mean, I definitely had a TikTok follower because I get asked because I don't really make evangelical content at this. I don't really make content at this point, but I had somebody say once, like, people ask all the time where I'm at, like, how's your faith changed? What do you call yourself? And someone kind of called me. I don't really answer those questions because I haven't felt ready to say it on a platform in that way, not because of the platform itself, but because of the people in my life who would hear it on the internet and like feel offended and like have those reactions about me like, oh my god, we've lost her, like she's going to hell, like, oh, my heart is like I will feel bad for causing them hurt. So I haven't wanted to say it on the internet. And this person was like, I followed you because you were a Christian who said the true things. And now that you're not a Christian, obviously, I was like, oh, ow. Now that you're not a Christian, obviously, I have to question all the things that you said. And it set me back in my, and I was like, oh
Sure
my
did.
God, that's a lot of pressure to put on a single person. Okay.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. Believing there are different flavors of Christianity. I love Jesus, not American patriarchy, white supremacy, capitalist variety. Sorry, I
Yeah.
was reading a comment. Yeah, for sure. Um, and I think maybe that's where I'm still clinging to like being like, well, don't tell me I'm not a Christian, you know, like don't, or myself even. I won't say that because I have learned in these like really like, you know, the people on Twitter and stuff would call it heresy for sure, but like these different versions of Christianity that are pure, like much more pure than the ones that we were taught that I think that have redeeming
Yeah.
factors to them. And again, I promise you, I won't talk about it every episode. But also, when you go through something like losing a parent who did hold to every bit of the gospel, like there's, you know, around his death, there's so much Christianity in the conversations around it, in the service that day, like so much of the gospel that in that moment, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, am I wrong about all of this? And all of a sudden today I believe it. And I don't feel that way so much as like for that day, it was a comfort and that's okay.
Mhm.
Like for that day, all of these factors of Christianity that I might not hold to myself felt comforting to me. And that doesn't mean I have to like question myself on, oh my God, do I not actually believe it or do I really believe it? I'm allowed to just say that for that day, it was comforting.
Yeah.
And the next day I can go back to being like, I'm not so sure about it anymore. And that's both ones are okay.
It's so interesting because I mean, we could call this the Dead Christian Parent podcast at this point.
We
Like
could
we're just
rebrand,
all
guys.
three in the same position. And I mean, we had a full worship service. We didn't have a funeral. We had a worship service. And I hated every second of it. Like
Mm,
my mom would have loved it. They were her. She had told me what songs and which worship pastor from her years in ministry that she wanted to come lead this. And I mean, we're talking like charismatic. There was
Yeah.
hooting and hollering. There
yeah,
was
sure.
hand raising.
Not my dad's Baptist funeral
No,
is what you're
it was
saying.
like, I mean, we had church.
Yeah.
We had
Mhm.
church, and I hated it, and I wanted to scream at the top of my lungs like, "This is fucking dumb."
Hmm.
And I think it's so interesting to hear you say that the elements of your father's faith that were present in his service brought you comfort, because I was like, I had the exact opposite
Yeah.
experience where I was like, I am resentful of all of this. And I don't know that that would be different now. Like if I had the same experience in this version of myself,
Yeah.
I don't think it would. I think it would still make me angry. And I think that I would still feel really resentful of it.
Well, I wonder because like my mama and papa's, I was really resentful of it because it was very, very little. Both of their services were very, very little about them and the majority just the gospel. Okay. And so I was like, what the fuck? Talk about my mama. Talk about my papa. You know, I was like really
That was also
frustrated.
not my problem.
Well, so, but like at my dad's, I felt like even though it was faith, it was like him singing, right? Like
Yeah.
him singing, or like his best friend was talking about his faith. It was at the very end when when the pastor gave like the 2-minute gospel at the end. I was like, okay, I don't need this part because it wasn't about my dad at that point. But I think the
Yeah.
reason why I felt comfort because it was like Christianity that was about Doug, not just
Yeah.
a worship service that wasn't about
Just the
him.
worship. Straight up. I mean, we
I
talked
would hate
people got up and talked about her. I I'm trying to weigh how so I have a feeling that it has more to do with where I felt like the honesty of the situation was at and the idea of like worshiping this God that this person had supposedly followed their whole life, and then also like the experiences of being that person's child and like knowing them and like
Mhm.
growing up and carrying whatever one might carry from such experiences and having to be like nobody around me is being honest right now. So I think it might have to do with that, whereas I will say as someone who didn't know your dad but who knows you and who knew how you spoke of him, your dad's service felt very honest.
I think it was. Yeah, I think it was. I wish it would have been more honest, but that's just because but we would have been there for like 8 years instead of
Yeah.
3 hours right at that point. Like he just was my favorite human.
Yeah.
And so, and in that even is like with my brother, what he said and stuff like he's my favorite human. And so much of that was his faith. And I can't take that away from him and just be like faith in general is bad. Christian, like no, it was
Yeah.
really beautiful in his life in a lot of ways. All right, no more talking about dead parents. I'm sure that'll come up. And now that I joined this really
then
unfun club that the girls are in, we'll talk about it.
In the next episode, I'll tell you about my dad's funeral.
Tune in
in.
Tune in next time. Well, I was gonna say I didn't intend for that to go quite that
Me
direction,
either.
but
Me either. But also April, it was like 10 minutes past her bedtime at this
I
point.
It
know.
is
But
getting
what
late. I yawned on air and I felt bad.
I
No.
saw it. That's why I'm like, she's
No, I
she's
know. I
gonna
saw
fall
you see
asleep.
it and I thought, oh shoot, Rachel saw it.
I think that it's fair to just Rachel, just for the record, like you get to talk about that as much as it comes to mind. This podcast has always just been the three of us. Okay,
Yeah.
well, it hasn't always been the three of us, but this podcast has just always been us talking. And like
Yeah.
the topics have always been, regardless of if the people watching or listening know that, they've always been sort of central to what's happening in our actual lives in that time.
Yeah.
It's okay that part of what's in your actual life at this time is the desire to talk about your dad and like that your mental pathways go back to your dad. We're for it, babe. We'll hear it.
Listen, I obnoxiously talked about my dad like the
Yeah,
first year
that's
after
all
he
I wanna
died.
talk about.
Literally, I was in grad school and like 2 of my projects I figured out a way to write it about my dad.
You're like, how can I make this about
Yeah.
my dad?
I also talked about my mom for the year after she died. It was just different. It was just different.
It's a different kind of talking, yeah, for
Talking.
sure. Well, it changes your whole life, right? So,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
yeah, like, my whole life, and I think, like, in large part, like, my family, like, we all are processing it ourselves, and so we don't talk about it a not that we never talk about it, we do, but, like, we talk about logistics and stuff, right?
Right.
Like, unfun stuff like that, and then, like, my friends, I don't say, like, they're over it, but, like, everybody's world like, lives
It's okay
move
to say that,
on.
yeah, when your parent dies, everybody else's life just keeps going. And like
Yeah.
every facet of your life is different. And so every moment is a reminder of what has happened. And especially with the holidays coming up, like it's literally this. So it's, and I will also say like, oh God, it's not like, I'm sorry, my computer has been sending me notifications this entire podcast. People would ask me, "How are you? I'm here if you want to talk." And I'd be like, I don't know why, but you said that and now I don't. And it's the
Yeah,
last thing I
immediately no.
want. But then when I was talking about whatever, it just would come out of me.
Yeah.
because I did want to talk but I wanted it to be on my terms, and I didn't even know I wanted it to be on my terms, but I just recognized that when the spotlight was on the grieving daughter to talk about the deceased parent, I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. But when I was just in conversation, I wanted the freedom for it to come up.
Yeah.
And so that's why you have the freedom for it to come up.
Well, I appreciate it, and I will not make an apology going forward every time I would like to
Good.
talk about my father.
DPC,
It's been a wild I'm sorry, what?
Dead Parent
The
Club.
Parent Club.
Oh my God.
We should like have a
We have different
cheer that we do.
different frameworks because you went DP and my brain immediately went a different direction.
Abby, it is not that kind of podcast. And also April probably doesn't even know what that is.
It's
Look at her face.
A DP is director of photography.
God, I thought she was
It's-
gonna say it, and I was
it is
literally like,
Or is
Not?
it a dick pic?
No.
no, closer.
Not
No,
that either.
Think
don't know
like
what it is,
2
then.
of them. No. Look at her face. This is why you should watch the
2 of
podcast
them?
because you can't see.
my God.
Double penetration?
There
Look
you
at you.
go.
Look at you.
Wow, I really did think if it was dirty, it was dick pic.
I
On a
told you.
girl?
Please don't Google it.
You know, I'll tell you about it when we're off the show. The
I'm trying
way
to picture it.
that this episode has gone, like, I don't know how we're ending here, but Abby, you want to see
We
us out of
really
this
run the
shit show?
gamut.
There's a reason why I'm still the Christian. I'm just kidding. It was a joke.
Wow.
I'm just kidding. I am
Yeah.
naive though, not by
It's
choice,
okay.
but I just
Well,
am.
this has been lovely, and I think it's been very fitting for our first official comeback as a trio.
Yes. He was great. Everybody who missed us, sorry, it was just the really bad year. So we did not have lots of shows, but now we're back.
Rachel, you should title this DP Club.
Oh my God.
And just see, like,
And
people be like, I
just-
want to listen to that.
And yeah,
They'll
let
find
it-
out in the last 2
let
minutes. what the
people
fuck it was.
wonder.
I gotta go.
Abby, you're wrapping this up.
I tried. I was segueing out so nicely. I was like, this has been a lovely first episode back with us as a trio.
Okay, so
And then
we'll-
we went straight back into double penetration.
we are going to have an episode in a few weeks.
And it's going to be a
in,
special episode. Oh, no, wait.
in
That's the
this
episode after.
Diciembre.
The one in December will not be a special. We'll make it Christmassy. But then we're really excited about an episode that we're working on to start the new year in January. And we're going to get back to the regularly scheduled programming as far as the Heretics goes. Not the Recovering Evangelical for now, but
That's okay.
Heretics is back.
Raise
We've
your hand
already
if you have a
recovered.
podcast that you're avoiding doing.
What'd you say?
I said, that's okay. Raise your hand if you have a podcast that you're avoiding doing.
Raise your hand if you recorded your episode for that podcast like months ago and the bitch has never put it anywhere. Like, we're both raising our
We're
hands.
both raising
I
our
don't-
hands.
Whenever you put it up, I'm gonna be surprised by what I say because I don't fucking remember. I
That's
don't
been my plan this whole time.
remember.
You want to know what's holding it up right now?
Hmm.
Literally just an introductory episode. Me just recording like an introductory 15-minute on my own episode, and then
We
uploading.
recorded like almost a year ago, I feel like at this point.
We did not. It was in the summer, but I can understand
Okay.
why it would feel like almost a year ago based on the time that you have had since then.
Okay. Well, we
Mhm.
love you guys, and we'll see you in a few weeks, the Monday before Christmas, so the 18th. We'll be back. So you literally only have to wait like 20 days.
Yay.
And as you saw, if you watched this episode, it began with the actual intro, and I miss creating our own. So now we're going to create an outro for you in this moment. Ready, ladies? 1, 2, 3.
DPC, 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 DPC.